Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Once again, thank you very much, the audience, to be here and the viewers watching this program. I'd like to just reiterate that if you can please, in this part of the debate, engage as much as you can, even with comments or the questions, so that would be great. I'd like to say thanks to some of our Ahl Sunnah brothers who are here, and I'm grateful to you for have joined the audience, and obviously Sheikh Moghra to be here and supporting this, and as a part of the Ummah, of course. And a dear friend has actually requested in the break for me to try and convey a message. I think it's a very important message, and I think it goes down right to the bone where we really need to start this reformation that we have to start. But before I do that, I'll just like to share a philosophical point. Somebody has wisely put it brilliantly, that whatever is in our mind and whatever we are thinking is not part of time and space. So because it's not part of time and space, it is not subjected to a causal chain of effect, and it is not deterministic. But the moment we bring it into any action, whether by giving a body language or say something or make an action, it will always follow a chain of consequences. And to have consequences coming which have no objective, it really comes down to no good, in vain. And with that, the message that my dear friend has asked me to convey is, with the Shia and Sunni, not a dispute, not a conflict, but difference of looking at religion, if we are to say something, if we are to make any action, it is only going to have consequences which most likely and in more than often, they just lead to negative consequences. So should we really be doing that, Should we really be doing that? If we have control, free will, we have control, free will, because it is a part of our noumenal self, not a physical self. So things can be there. That's where we have our aqidah with God and what we believe. But if we are going to bring that into any actions, we really have to first let our intellect inform us that what consequences it's going to lead. And obviously we have seen that all that happens is when one person is saying, as the brother Firoz said, that if it's my religion right, your sect right, or my sect right, it's only causing disunity and hurt, and we are undignifying other people. And is there a need to that? So with that, I will start again this debate. I would like to take the questions.
Christian and Sabians who follow their religion. I don't know which ayat it is. I'm sure your scholars will say. I don't know. It's in the middle of Surah Baqarah. And follow their religion. وَلَا خَوْفٌ عَلَيْهِمْ وَلَهُمْ يَحْزَنُونَ. Now, when I and you are scholars, that means the way I understood it from the tafsir session I attended a long time ago, was that if God is saying that they will have this la khawfun alayhim wa lahum yahzanun, is also used in other places for those believers who will be successful on the day of judgment. So if in that ayat of that Quran, when Allah is saying that those who are Christians, Jews and Sabians, I think is the other one, and will follow their religion rightly based on their understanding, then Allah will deal with them in that manner. Okay? Now, I'm not a scholar by any means, and I'm not a mufassir, but if this is one interpretation of the mufassirin, and this is talking about not just the Shia, Sunni, or the different sects of Islam, can we not at least ponder and think that if Allah is going to judge these people based on that, and He's telling us that this is for me to judge, then who are we? And the last question I want to put is, who are we in this world, in the absence of the Prophet, and if you're a Shia, in the absence of the Imam? Okay, though many Sunni schools of thought believe that there is a concept of Mahdi, right, which is not just a Shia concept, which many people don't know. But in the absence of all that, at this present moment, right, there is no Imam for the Shias, okay, though people will argue that he is there present guiding us, but physically he's not there, so there is no way we can actually have ruju to him. In the absence of that, why cannot we agree to disagree and leave it to God to judge us on the day of judgment?
No, thank you very much for your contribution on this. May I take some more questions or comments on this? Ari, please.
What we need, what everyone says is a refinement of this. What's required is a perpetual refinement of the self. Is that correct? We perpetually have to refine our own selves. So, as if we're looking forward, perhaps then your job should actually be perhaps then to define what is the self. I mean, it's one thing, for example, to say, look, be more tolerant or be more accepting, but how is it within me as an individual? Now, God says, I've made everybody from one soul. So our own cosmology is effectively unitary. Each of us are subject to the same likes and dislikes. We all move the same way. I mean, perhaps we have our own, if your own biology, but all of us are made the same way. So therefore, there could be a unified model that affects everybody in existence. I mean, we come from one source, so therefore, everyone has to be the same. So perhaps, your model as teachers should be perhaps more of a sociology, let's say more of a psychology teacher, by getting to people to understand their own selves. Because now we've said that to be a Muslim, you have to be accepting, you have to be tolerant, you have to be a moralistic person. So how do you explain how to be that? You can't necessarily just say, look, this is because God wants you to be. I mean, you can't explain children today God. They don't understand what is God. What is the concept of God? I mean, just to go back, you said, look, attach yourself to God. Now, I mean, I understand what you mean. But for example, if it was somebody else, what does that mean? I mean, isn't God greater than anything that can be imagined? How can me as a human being attach myself to God? So I mean, as an alim, I understand why you're saying that. And I understand it comes from your own dedicated worship. But at a purely intellectual level, it doesn't mean anything. How can you as a human being attach yourself to something which is the cause of all things, greater than all things, reality, truth? So I think linguistics, as was mentioned earlier, becomes very important. I think it's, what worked before, maybe 1-2 generations ago, is not going to work now.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Brother Ali. I think that opens the debate into a lot more different spectrums that I would like to just ask the Maulana. But are there any other?
I think one is we should really look at taking a lesson from other minority groups. I can give you an example of the Aghani community. I can give you the examples of the Jewish community. You'll be shocked to know that in Agha Jamaat Khana in Knightsbridge, they regularly have interfaith meetings. And they regularly have debates on other things as well, which is, religion dominated, but it's quite open. And in the Jewish community is the same thing. Now, if you go to any part of the subcontinent, you have Aghani schools, you have Aghani hospitals, and a lot of other Aghani related things. If you read the Golden Throne by the grandfather of the President Agha, his ethos was education, education, education. This is going back over 100 years ago. And I think they have really, to a certain extent, attained it. And I think we should really be looking ourselves, and I think we've got the best religion, the best prophet. Unfortunately, the Ummah is nowhere near good. Forget about being best. I think we need to really put our house in order, put ourselves, first of all, that we are the culprits. We are to blame for a lot of things that's happening. And I think that's, I think that's
important
we should start.
Aspect.
We're not good Muslims. We have the best religion.
Mm-hmm. There's a question at the back.
We are the best Islam in the world, everybody is, and the scholars we have, by the Prophet, we are the best Islam in the world. How come everybody in the world is pointing out Islam, that we are the bad terrorist people on the earth? In spite we have good preachers, this Islam has been conveyed by Prophet in a very good way in a Quranic manner, but still we have a bad name on this at the present time. So who is the responsible for all these things at present?
There's one more question on that side.
Perhaps just to suggest an answer to that question, I think we Muslims are to blame for a lot of what's happening. There is Islamophobia that's global, and it's only been 20 years where 8,000 Muslims were massacred in Srebrenica. That's Europe, and that could happen anytime, anywhere. There's so much hatred with the media. So, a lot of responsibility lies upon ourselves. Imam Ali alayhi salam said, don't spread your faith with your speech, but with your action. And, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that we should, if you want to change the state of the people, you have to change what is within yourself. And, what will benefit a person on the Day of Judgment is an upright and a sound heart. That's what we're going to present to God. So you have to look at yourself. Don't look and point the fingers at others. Just look at yourself first and begin with yourself. Do you know what happened in Srebrenica was that the neighbors were pointing out who the Muslims are, and that's why they were killed. You need to ask yourself, do you know your neighbors? Would they do the same to you if the tide turns? It doesn't take long for, hatred to whip up. That was Europe.
And a comment, Sister Alia. Yes.
We exist on Allah's earth. Our main objective and aim is to take back the virtue ethics which you have mentioned, that is akhlaq. We have to accumulate that in self. I read Quran for the sawab. I don't know what that sawab is. I go to majlis. I take a sawab and come home. But the thing is that I feel that there should be a change in self, that the Quran should bring the change in me. Reading, going for a majlis should bring the change in me. Even when we go for a majlis, we listen to a lot of fazail or a lot of masaib, but during the fazail and masaib, never we heard, ulama has said that, can you take example of Karbala and take certain virtues like Ali Akbar alayhi salam, the relation between father and son. The brother Abul Fazil Abbas, the patience. Can you try to take the patience and incorporate in yourself? Learn to do that. I think this thing haven't been said even in our gatherings. So can I ask Maulana to enlighten me something on this issue?
Any more questions? Any more comments? Yes, one more.
My question is to all the panel here, that we are talking about the beloved prophet, who was the chosen one, the best one amongst all the prophets. Do we really think that he would leave his ummah without giving a proper message for all the ummah, that we are not divided? Do you really believe that? That at the moment, in this current world we are living, we don't leave anything without any nominations. So how can our prophet, who was completely, fully knowledge prophet by Allah, who would leave the ummah or decided to adopt the way you like it? So it means we are indirectly blaming our prophet that he left the ummah without giving them a proper hidayah. So you just choose it the way you like it. Tabi'in, Sahaba or Ahl Bayt. What is it? I mean, I don't think that my prophet has left the ummah without giving a proper message to follow. So we have divided. Not the prophet has completed his job, but then the ummah did not follow it properly. This is yeah. we are here having all these questions, chimes, and all these sort of conferences. What for?
Because
we need to go back to that message to understand. The Prophet cannot leave their ummah without any proper guidance. And that is my question to all the panel.
Thank you, Sister Razia. So, Maulana, there are a lot of questions and a lot of comments, questions, strokes, comments. And it seems to be begging a transcending threshold where we try to see where this responsibility lies and what can be done. And theoretically, as we were alluding before, that there is much there in our institutions and alim, and whether it's in Ahl Sunnat schools of thoughts institution or our Shia and Marja'iyat and everything, but there seems to be a vacuum in between that we are unable to kind of put a finger where the problem is. And are there any failings that have not somehow failings that have unable that actual message to have come to us? And when we talk about virtue ethics, the main aspect of virtue ethics is having wisdom and to be governed by the wisdom. And I think that we began the debate with whether the community still suffer with the sense of pride and tribalism. It's because we are always governed by our emotions. That is the animalistic part of our nafs. So there are, as Brother Ali put, that what methodologies are, which we've discussed in the back in the previous programs. There has to be some methodologies that are able to kind of overcome that problem, that we are a community that uses wisdom over emotions. We are very easily provoked, and that is the reason that much of the problems that we've discussed, whether on WhatsApp post or between different factions of our communities, but the problem is very imminent, and we really need to tackle it, because 100, 200, 300, 400 years ago, or in the last 1400 years ago, things were very different. In the last 50 years, the movement of this atheistic movement, not all atheistic, but atheistic movement, which kind of promote life, that there is no God after this world, fatalist. They believe in nothing after this world, so just do whatever you want to do. And there are a lot of values which clashes the very basic human values, which Islam had, primarily come to kind of disseminate. And that was in the qualities of Prophet Muhammad. Now we are so far off from that spirit. Theoretically, we are, having a discussion. We have a lot of comments, we have a lot of questions, but they are not going to get anywhere unless we realize that where this stops and where this has to come from. So would I be right to say that that gap needs to be beyond theory, needs to be tackled, that in the Ahl-Sunnat school, whether it's Hanbali or Shafi'i school, things have to come down to the masses in which it carries the real spirit of Islam, what it is. Not passively we talk about in theory, and we can cite all the verses from Quran and please ourselves is really pleasantry. But the danger is very imminent for our next generation, for us. And as Sister Alia has alluded that the problem is looming right above us. You don't know when it will all start. Something small can be very inflammatory and just change. So the whole idea, something that we really need to be looking into, that this virtue ethics, these values, these are universal values. They're not particulars. They're not particulars to the Ahl-Sunnat school or the Tashayyu school, or to any other school for that matter. They are human values. Unless we engender those values within us and then disseminate, we cannot combat this a very extreme movement that is out there. We are still stuck. There's a part of Zionism that poses a lot of threat to Muslims, no doubt. But this school of thought, where they are coming to say that everything is okay, you do this, you do that, that includes whether materialism to the extent that one will not conceive, or whether values that they are trying to promote, that is very detrimental to humanity. How can we actually, Prophet Muhammad is, peace be upon him, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, is Haqiqatun Nabi in that sense, that it's the character that he had, that Haqiqat of those values of tolerance, patience, compassion, wisdom, always applied with wisdom, through which it can save and be the salvation from humanity. Unless we have engendered those qualities, we have not emulated his essence. We are trying to emulate his accidental properties, and that is not going to save us. And we really are at a time, at that 11th hour, that we really need to look into what our problems are. All the problems that we have mentioned, that so easily our alims are labeled Zionist, our alims are labeled working for the government here and all that, without consideration. Virtue ethics begs us to look into considerations. Virtue ethics begs us to judge the situation accordingly. And one problem that I feel, and our brothers feel here in discussion with Brother Azhar, Brother Abid, Brother Ali, that unless we start to understand what reasoning is, what is the position of rationality in our lives, as aql is supposed to be that which binds us back to God, and start to, at least our children, learn that we should be governed by aql, not our emotions. And that is the problem. The good traits we have are usually driven out of emotions. And I will raise my hand first. Any good habits I have are mostly 99% driven out of my emotions. My emotions are not going to best inform what is haq. I will not be able to produce justice. I'll be over generous, I'll be over loving, I'll be over kind, but I will not be proportionally just proportionally generous, or any virtues that I may exhibit. So I think all the questions that have come really begs us to go to that very essence of where this education can come to us and what methodologies there must be. I know that we have discussed that we should have this education and education and education, but what kind of education, exactly what methodology, as Brother Ali put, how does one know how to be God conscious? So there's got to be methodologies, and that, as you, Sheikh Moghra, brilliantly put, that there has to be role models. But unless this bridge between the traditionalist Islam, apart from the literalist, but traditional Islam is filled with the modern day challenges, I think we are just going to continue with this problem further and further to the point that it becomes extremely dangerous. So with that, I would like to just, if you could perhaps put light on the questions that have been asked. I think all the questions are pretty much of the same nature. They all aim to the same kind of, the question is really one, but from the different dimensions they've come. So I have been audacious. I hope you forgive me for this audacity to have put my questions in this manner, but I think we need to transcend. Unless we transcend, we will always remain complacent, and we will never find the solutions that we so desperately need at this time. So may I put that to Manali Brother Rizvi, with all the, encapsulating all those questions, if you like, in kind of.
I wanted to go last, but I'll go first now. I think you've answered it yourself, but I want to touch upon all the questions very briefly, if I remember all the questions. We are not educating our people, we are making them machines. And the system makes us machines. And the education system makes us a machine. 9 to 5, and they don't give us the capability of thinking. And the point that raised, once a person says a story about Imam Hussein, they need to tell, no, a person needs to think. I don't need to spell it out. Someone should be picking it up. Oh, there is a message in that story. That message doesn't have to be the same for every person. Okay? Islam gave us the freedom of thinking and broad-mindedness. Now that has been taken away. People have become machines. Oh, hang on, but I was told 2 and 2 is 4. So how come the mathematical system has failed in philosophy? Oh, this is philosophy, this is not mathematics. You need to think differently. Critical thinking does not come through. Now, unfortunately, the power of thinking, wisdom, intellect has been taken away. The power of reasoning, as you may call it, has been taken away. And the entire system makes you a machine. Where Sister Alia and I think one of the brothers, I think Brother Abbas, had pointed out, Islamophobia is on increase. Why? Because no one is willing to come and ask a Muslim, do you really believe in this? Because the media said it, it must be true. They make you a machine to accept everything. Everything it says. 99% may be true, but the 1% lie they want to infiltrate. They have to say the 99 truths for you to accept the 100th lie. And everyone accepts that the media is correct in saying that all Muslims are. Oh, he looked like a normal person. The terrorists look like a normal person, so don't trust even the normal Muslims. They don't say that, okay? But that message comes across very strongly when the media says, he looked like a normal person. You have to be a psychologist to pick that up. It is very intellectually placed in the way the message is being installed. And you all accept it and take it in. In fact, many of the Muslims will actually believe, Maulana, how are you defending this? All Muslims are corrupt. They held let me just for humor, in India they held a survey. Star TV in India held a survey in Bombay. Are the Indians naturally corrupt? Or, no, the society is made as such. Do you know that 76% of the people voted that, no, we are naturally corrupt. We are all, Indians are so bad. So Indian, subcontinent of Pakistan and India. We're all, it is in our system that we are so corrupt. How could you be blaming Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for your nature? Could you believe it? But that's what we've been continuously told. Have you ever seen, there is a big psychologist, American psychologist, one of the Pakistani leaders, without mentioning the names of either of the two. He was organized a meeting with this, an audience with this psychologist. He said, what can I do for you? He said, oh, there are many problems in Pakistan, terrorism, and he listed the whole list of problems. He said, well, I don't see any of these as a problem. He said, no, these are big problems in Pakistan, so how can you help? He said, do you know that there are more people in America that die with suicide that you've mentioned in Pakistan killed in terrorism, 84,000? There are more people that get murdered or run over by a car or commit suicide. He said, I didn't know that. He listed all the problems in Pakistan, that they were 10 times worse in America, and yet America is still more normal society than Pakistan. He said, what's the problem? He said, because your media is only showing negative news and there is nothing positive. How do I portray this shooting in the schools on the television? The establishment gives you the wordings. How will it hit a person? Please do not become machines. Become open thinkers. The Holy Prophet gave the ability to think. Nahnu abid al-dalil, Imam Jafar Sadiq alayhi salam, he said, we are all servants of dalil, reasoning. Do not become servants. Okay, now, very quickly I want to touch upon disagree with the notion that you gave, that we are only governed by emotions and not intellect. I hope I'm not taking too much of your time.
No.
I'm really sorry about this. We have two things, which is emotions and intellect. You cannot rid any one of the two from yourself. If I was only completely intellectual, with no emotions, I will not feel the love that I have for my child. I have to have a fraction of, I have to always have the emotions. But whenever there is a stronger jab of one of the two, if I have a stronger installation of emotions, then I will kill my wisdom. And if I have too strong of I'm a very wise person, I'll have no emotions. I'll not even feel the pain. Oh, my wife is going through pain. And Marhum Allama Muhammad Taqi Jafri, he said, I was fighting with my wife as a young man, and suddenly I saw certain things. He had a lot of mukashafat. He was an arif. I saw the consequences of shouting at my wife in the hell. So quickly went and held her hand and kissed her and said, I'm really sorry. You never do that. What happened? He said, I can't tell you. But I'm really sorry. Why? I can't explain. He just quickly went and did 2 rakat namaz, repented with wudu. Ya Allah, I just suddenly saw the consequences. So if you're too wise, then you have no feelings for the people, the pains of other people. So you need to have that, the emotions. But emotions should not be governing you. They should only be giving you the feel of the pain of other people. And the love, emotion gives you the true feeling of the others. If you only have wisdom, you only are selfish. You only think about yourself. But if you have emotions, then you also feel the pains of other people. So emotion give you that, and the wisdom governs it and rules it. So you shouldn't let the emotions die completely. There is a whole chapter in the Islamic tradition of crying. The Holy Prophet used to cry a lot. Whenever alone with God, he would cry. Imam Ali al-Islam kind of bakka'an, he used to cry a lot. Can you do that with wisdom? Complete wisdom, no emotions. You will never cry. You're not a true human being if you don't learn how to cry and feel the pain of others. I see an orphan, if it doesn't make me cry, then there is something wrong with me. If I see the pain, even an animal or a bird, it should touch my heart. Otherwise there is something wrong.
Maulana Sahib, in the way that I think in virtue ethics that I'm trying to allude, that wisdom should govern the emotions. Emotions we can't do without.
I wasn't negating.
Yeah.
But the message was going as if we should completely rid ourselves from the emotions.
No, that wasn't my... Yeah.
Yes, so I'm trying to say
it's just that, when we are so quickly becoming tribalistic...
I 100% agree with you.
It is because our emotions...
I 100% agree with you. Because what we are doing is, we are riding the horse of emotions. The final word I want to say on this, and then I'll allow my other two friends to inshallah contribute, my brothers. When you're on a horse, the reins should be in your hand and you should be in control of the horse. The horse shouldn't be in control of you.
And your reins.
If you're in control, then you are wise. If the horse is in control, then the emotions have taken over.
Absolutely.
That's the difference. So you should be in control, and that's fine.
So, Maulana Sahab, that all the questions, if they were encapsulated again, and what is the need, and how would it be implemented, and what are the strategies?
Open-mindedness, wisdom, intellect, and do not let yourself become a machine where you can't step out. Recently an incident happened, and I had a long 2-3 hour meeting with one of the community leaders without mentioning any names. He said, unfortunately, I realized that, we were always saying, oh, radical Islam only belongs to the Wahhabis, and the Deobandis only have it. The Shias don't have anything to do with it. He said, I realized within the last 1 month, hang on, there are radicals within Shias as well. And he said, I learnt it the hard way. Because I fell in the pit where I was stung, and I saw that no, actually, once you take away, say, I am right, follow me. You've taken away the independent thinking and the wisdom from the person. You make the person think. Don't impose it on your child and say, my way is the right way. Let them think, and they question, and then you answer, and then make them wise. Don't kill their wisdom. Let them become independent thinkers and become wise. I hope I've answered all. I hope all.
Just the last question, Maulana Sahib, again to you, just to conclude this, all the questions again, that at this point, as the questions were put, I know that you alluded to something that, we should be wise and we should be, but that would be relative for different people and different schools of thought. Now, in the light of what is happening exactly within our communities, the ever-growing, fast-paced, growing differences that are occurring, some scholars are speaking in derogatory manner across the board, different schools of thoughts, and what it is actually causing, and different diversions that are happening within the community. There is nothing informing from above how to deal with this situation, and this situation is like very inflammatory. What would you say after this program, perhaps, that what your action would be towards this problem, and what our action should be towards this problem, and what should be a collective short-term, medium-term, long-term solution to this? Or, do we become active to this solution, or we just sit passively and let it happen?
This is what I have reached as a conclusion to the problem. I may be wrong, but let me share it with you. I believe that there are very few people who are prejudiced, who are spreading sectarianism, but they are louder than the majority. And majority are good, but they are very quiet and do not ever oppose to the small fraction of people who are spreading the hatred, but they are loud. Number one, we have already lost the media war. Unfortunately, I believe very strongly in this, that we have already lost the media war. So we have to get back into the media strongly, prepared, and fight the battle properly. Cannot just say we have lost, so now just get out. No, you have to go back to the battle. Third, our education system has failed us. We need to again make the children think. The entire education system has to improve. The few schools that are, I don't want to mention any schools, but I think it was yourself, the brother was mentioning that there are small fractions like Jews, Khanis. Look at their education system. What we teach, what we learn in universities, they are learning as teenagers, 11, 12 years old, 13-year-olds. They are doing philosophy, they're doing logic, they're doing critical thinking at 11, 12, 13-year-olds. They're doing all of these things. We only do them in the university. I started after 18, I started learning those things. So we need to start revising our education system. It is always easier to organize a small group, and it is more difficult to organize larger groups. We are much bigger in numbers. But we cannot just blame that because we are large in number. The largest group in the world are the Catholics, and they have the best and the biggest education system. And we have to learn. And we cannot just sit down on the fence crying, things are wrong. Let's start somewhere. And like you said, the grandfather of the present Agha said over 100 years ago, education, education, education. I was looking at I was trying to reform some of the system, and I sat down with a group of people, reformist Jews groups, and I said, hang on, did the two of you devise the entire system? They said, no. It was 850 years ago where all the European Jewish leadership got together and they devised a plan that we have to only concentrate on two things, education and economy. And then others only improved on that. So can you imagine, we're competing with 650 years plan, 850 years plan, and over 100-year-old plan, but we have to start somewhere. We cannot just continuously cry sitting on the side that we don't have anything. We need to start somewhere. And I think education has to be not just making people machines. Even if you give, like an hour to an engineering student at a master's level, say, if the teacher came and sat down, he wouldn't be able to resolve because they're not making you open thinkers, they're making you machines. That's the formula you have to follow. That's the method you have to follow. Can you get out of the box and think critically and wisely?
And is that going to be encouraged from the authorities?
I'm doing it as much as I can. I spoke to a few 100,000 people. Mm-hmm. It was being relayed on television, a few million people. I've had many people call. But obviously, I have to be very basic. Because when I'm talking to an intellectual group here, then I may have different words to present. Mm-hmm. But when I'm talking to masses, 100,000 people in the streets of Karachi or in Lahore, 10,000 people, obviously I have to make it much simpler. Mm-hmm. The words have to be simple, examples have to be very simple. They have to be very straightforward, but there is always a message. If you don't have a message, then you're not worth giving the message. If you have a message, then you are worth giving a message.
Thank you, Maulana Sahib.
I'm really sorry.
That's okay. Sheikh Mogra, Maulana Sahib covered all those questions encapsulated, including my questions. So if you would like to give your comments on, combining all those questions and addressing to them, yes, including the ones that I put as well.
So I appreciate Maulana Sahib's answers. There's not much I could add to it, but just some reminders that Allah has made this ummah as the ummah that always chooses the path, the middle path. We are not extreme either way. As Maulana said, in regards to our wisdom, in regards to our emotion, there is always a middle way. And for us, the model has to be the blessed Messenger Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. لَقَدْ كَانَ لَكُمْ فِي رَسُولِ اللَّهِ أُسْوَةٌ حَسَنَةٌ. And we can understand our attachment to the deen and our attachment to Allah in many different ways. The crux of it is our love for Allah. That I love Allah and Allah should love me in return. And that is only possible based on the ayah of the Quran. إِن كُنتُمْ تُحِبُّونَ اللَّهَ فَاتَّبِعُونِ يُحْبِبْكُمُ اللَّهُ. That if we claim that we are Muslim and we love Allah, then we must follow the Sunnah. When we follow the Sunnah, then Allah will love us. The Sunnah has got the answers to all our issues and our problems. If we unpack each and every one of our problems, we will find that we have failed the application of the Sunnah. It's in the pages of the books, but it's not implemented in our lives. And I, as an imam, as a teacher, have a duty to ensure that the pristine teachings are taught to those who listen to me in the interpretation of my tradition. And I'm really not against the multiple interpretations, because I feel that that is a source of strength, that we can exercise our mind, our logic, our thinking. That's what the Quran invites us to use our aql and to think about things. And at times when we don't have the answer, فَاسْأَلُوا أَهْلَ الذِّكْرِ إِن كُنْتُمْ لَا تَعْلَمُونَ. We go to the people of knowledge, the scholars, and we get information from them. With regards to education, I am not in favor at all of making a distinction between what some may call mainstream education and Islamic education. Any piece of education which makes firstly a person a better human being is Islamic. If it makes them a good Muslim, is Islamic. It is as important for our young people to learn mathematics, science, physics, biology, psychology, and all the other subjects as it is, to learn the Quran, the Sunnah, the rituals, etc. There will be scholars who may say that no, there is more importance on the religious aspects. Of course, Aqidah and worship and all that are very, very important. But if we fall into the trap of giving one a lesser importance in this modern day and age when the Ummah is facing so many challenges, we will remain at the bottom of the pile. We also touched on the issue of unity. I would love to have unity in everything. Trust me, in my household, there are 6 of us. There is no unity. We always disagree. What should we cook? Where should we go as a family? What should we bring into the house? There are always different opinions. That is beautiful. If I fail to see the beauty in my family being able to express their own particular preference and choice, then it's a boring household. Father says everything goes as father says, or mother says everything. We need that color. And I would invite you all. We have moved past the stage. The Khairul Qurun, the best of the ages, have passed us. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the Ahlul Bayt, the Ashab, the Tabi'een, the Taba Tabi'een, those were the golden days of Islam. When the unity we think of uniformity, we've moved on. We have become so separated that to bring us onto the same platform, unless Allah wills it, through His greatness, He can do it. I don't believe I, as a mortal, as a human being, have the ability to create that. So what can I do? The alternative is for me to promote this idea that we are still united. Trust me, as I sit here, I don't feel out of place. I feel very much part of the Ummah. Yet I have very distinct interpretations and perhaps even beliefs as my 2 learned scholars on either side of me. And I see us as united. But if I was sectarian minded, then I would use this difference of interpretation and some aspects of belief as a divisive factor. Then we are not united. When we look at the 2 Ramadan starts, the 2 Eids, etc., for decades, British scholars have tried to create uniformity. We don't need the uniformity. Just accept we have different formulas and they are all valid. I just enjoyed the fact that I have an excuse to celebrate twice. So I think we as the Ummah must appreciate that diversity and look for strength in that diversity. Because we are investing too much time, effort and energy in uniformity when it's not required. We can be different. Certainly in the Sunni tradition, we have, for example, the 4 schools of law, and of course the Jafri school is also very highly respected. We also debated and studied that. But simple things like, I follow the Hanafi fiqh. If I jump into the ocean and I come out of the ocean, my wudu is done. I have no intention, I did not do Bismillah, nothing, my wudu is done. In the Shafi'i tradition, you can dive as deep as the mammals of the ocean and you come out, your wudu is not done. Because they require the niyyah. So, yet both the Hanafi person and the Shafi person can equally hold valid their positions without one saying you are right and you are wrong and I'm right. So this is our heritage, this is our legacy, that we have such respect between the scholars. Even in our lectures, when we were touching on differences of opinion, not necessarily just with the Jafri tradition, but even going into the Shi'i tradition, it was never done in a derogatory way, as putting them down or they are doomed to hell or they are wrong. but in a very academic, scholarly way, to create an appreciation for that diversity. So I think we as ordinary Muslims need to inculcate that within ourselves and our children especially, to respect the diversity within Muslims. Islam was able to reach all the corners of the globe and was able to incorporate much of the good culture that is present in all these. So you go to China, there's a Chinese flavor to the Islam. You go to West Africa, there is a West African flavor to the Islam. And I believe that was only possible because Islam did not require uniformity. Islam was able to embrace the diversity of the people. People felt very comfortable in their Islam, and of course the bad culture has to be rejected. We cannot accommodate that. So in addition to Maulana Saab's answers, I felt this was one more I could add, and I'd be very appreciative to hear Maulana Saab's.
Maulana Kalbe Abbas, if you will address to.
Alhamdulillah that we have the more important school name is School of Ahlul Bayt, or we can say University of Ahlul Bayt alayhi salatu wassalam. For example, we would like to take any information or moral, for example, we want to learn what is the actual practical moral. Islam does not come to just we can repeat the lot of words in Islam and this is this, that. No, Islam is the practical religion. For example, someone came from Sham, جاء رجل من الشام وأراد أن يسب على إمام الحسن عليه الصلاة والسلام فتكلم بكلمات غير مناسبة ولكن الإمام كان ساكتا وصامتا لم يتكلم ولم يجيب حتى كلمة واحدة لم يتكلم. He was trying and he was talking against Imam Hassan alayhi salatu wasalam, too much talk, but Imam was silent. In the last, Imam said, maybe you are gharib, you came from Sham, you don't have house, come, I will provide house. If you don't have food, I will provide food. If you are facing the financial crisis, I will support you, help you. After that, once Imam didn't reply to him, he said, Yabna, Ya Hassan ibn Ali ibn Abi Talib, حينما جئت من الشام, when I came from the Sham or from Damascus, I was your enemy. But I started to speak against you, and you were silent, no answer. And once you answered me by your moral and akhlaq, I understood what is the actual message of Islam. And if we want to take the message or qualities of Islam, we have to come to take from you. And from now, I love you. From now, I love you. Why? Because of moral. We have to learn from Imam Hassan, from Imam Hussain alayhi salatu wasalam. Imam Hussain was going to, for example, Karbala. Or he was on the journey. Hur came to Imam Hussain alayhi salatu wasalam. And little bit to 1 or 2 minutes. You know that Imam, that time he has lot of water for kids, for children, for everybody. But when Hur came and he was trying to stop the Imam Hussain alayhi salatu wasalam, Imam alayhi salatu wasalam answered him, what was answer. After that, Hur said to Imam Hussain that I am so thirsty. We all need water. And you know that this water Imam Hussain brought from Medina or from Mecca for Karbala, for children, for kids. But that time Hur was enemy of Imam Hussain alayhi salatu wasalam. He was not the lover of Imam Hussain alayhi salatu wasalam that time completely. You can say that maybe he has a lot of law inside, but he was trying to capture the Imam or to take Imam to Karbala or anyway. Imam Hussain has provided all water to his enemy Hur and his horses also. After that, for example, you can say that in the battlefield of Karbala, Hur was thinking, a lot of people they say that luck of Hur was that. No, I say that this tadbir then taqdir. Tadbir से हुर ने काम लिया, हुर ने तदबीर से काम लिया कि मैं जहन्नम के पास खड़ा हूँ, सामने जन्नत है. I have to understand, I have to think where we are standing. We have to learn from her. He was standing with Yazid near to the Jahannam, and after that he decided, after Tadbir, he decided, no, I have to go to the Imam Hussain alayhi salatu. And then he decided and gone to Imam Hussain. So we have to understand that lot of messages we have, but always we would like to say to everybody that I am Muslim, I am Muslim, I am Muslim. For example, lot of good adjectives and qualities we have, but if you can see that there is box, empty box, you can write there sakhawat, akhlaq, moral, tehzeeb, tamaddun, lot of things you can write there. But if there is no in the practical, for example in insan or human, if there is no practical Islam, we can't say that is insan. Why? Because lot of word he has information, but in practice no akhlaq, no hilm, no taqwa, no muhabbat. Because of these problems we are facing everywhere problem. As Prophet of Allah said to us, that's utlubul ilma minal mahdi ila lahad. What does it mean? Seek knowledge from cradle to grave. That does not mean that only Islamic education, all education you require in your life. More important that we should give the information and knowledge to our kids, to our children, to our atfal, to understand the actual message of Allah, actual message of Prophet, actual message of Ahlul Bayt alayhi salatu. Why? To get peace. You can't maintain the peace in the global world without Ahlul Bayt alayhi salatu wassalam. And regarding the also education, Mawlai Muttaqiyan, he wrote a letter to his governor and said to make the compulsory education in your section or in your country. 1400 years ago, Mawlai Muttaqiyan wrote a letter, you can see in the Nahj Balagha, wrote a letter to his governor to make compulsory the education. But we are standing. We follow the other education system at our, like respected brother Maulana Razari said. So we have to go the actual information and actual knowledge, then we can reach to our destination and our goal, inshallah ta'ala.
Thank you very much. I think we just got last 5 minutes, so are there any comments by anyone? Yeah, Brother Abbas.
Education today, or religious education among the people at large, or the young people at large, is much, much more than it ever has been, if you say the last 50 years or 40 years. And the young people are far more educated now than they've ever been. And we have to be proud of that. If you take the global perspective at the moment, there is a huge political move for their own reason to create situations to benefit not religiously but politically by playing the religious card. And you've seen that in Pakistan, you see that in Yemen, you see that. For example, Yemen, anyone who knows Yemen as we do for the last many years, they've had 2 or 3 tribes there. They've always understood each other. Whatever the problem they come, they understand and find a solution between themselves. Suddenly you have a wave now of trying to create it as a sectarian situation, which is absolutely not true, you see. And the destruction and that for political reasons, not for any other reasons, political and probably the need for taking more areas of land. So I think we must not mix that up with the aspect of religion or sectarian problem that exists. I think this is a phase that is going through which will pass in the next not too many years. For example, to give you an example, I mean, Syed mentioned about the aspect of his visit in Lahore and 150 students writing the same thing. I was just wondering if one of the students had written real facts, what he had in mind, he'd probably not be able to survive going out of the doors. He would have been shot or killed. So that's because of the political pressure. But the young people today are far more knowledgeable than they've ever been. And there's far more unity between people than it has ever been. what we hear always is the situations that are created by the not by religious or sectarian aspect, but by vested interests. And that includes, for example, in Pakistan, there's a lot of money going around distributed among the religious leaders or knowledges, who unfortunately some of them, they sacrifice their beliefs to meet the requirements of the political perspectives. So I think we should take this current position as a positive development. If you take, for example, in UK, we've been here 40 years. 40 years ago, we had just one person I know who used to read all the majalises in English, and we couldn't find anybody else suitably speaking English. Today there are, mashallah, many. And you take, for example, the people in England, the young people in England, far more educated, far more knowledgeable, and far more accepting differences, etc., than ever before. So what in short, what I'm trying to say is that we have to be positive about current situation, and I think things can only get better once the political vibe is changing, which will be in the next 5 years, 10 years, or maybe less. That's what I wanted to say.
Thank you very much, Brother Abbas. That brings us to the end of the program, but if I just may ask all of you, Maulana Ali Rizvi and Sheikh Ibrahim Agha and Maulana Kalbe Abbas, just in a minute, if you can kind of give a message to the distinction that you made, very clear distinction. There are like 5 or 10% minorities who are giving the voices, loud voices, and the ones that are falling into this tribalistic notion of judging others and declaring others non-Muslims and all the things that we said. What your message would be to those, and especially to the ones, the other 80% who are sitting complacent or in some way passive, what your message would be in light of the questions that have been put. If you can just kind of make a 1-minute comment to that, I'll be grateful.
I think finishing on a positive note, just like my respected brother Brother Abbas Gokul has made, one-line message would be that yes, there is awareness and education has improved, but we need to apply everything that we learn, and with application we need to openly think. I don't even believe that there are 5 to 10% people who are causing all the problems. I 100% disagree with the media saying the Muslims are doing it. I don't even think that this is only 1%. Daesh and the likes are not even 1%. They support. They're not 5%. If you look at all the scholars and all the people, they'll be a lot less. But unfortunately, those 1 or 2, they're not even a percentage. They're not even a fraction. You cannot even call them a percent. 1%. But because they are just 1 or 2 odd voices, but they're very loud, they get the full coverage. I remember all of us got together. I think it was in Aldgate Mosque. All the leadership, Muslim leadership, had got together and saying to the British police that so-and-so person, I don't want to mention the name, does not represent the Muslims, and he shouldn't be given the media coverage. They were not willing to accept. And so those are odd voices, but on the positive note, problems are there, but we all can make a difference. Never ever think that you're an individual and a difference will not come. Every society only has 1 or 2 people who bring the whole society to bring a change. Believe in yourself, and you could be that person who brings the whole of the community or the society or the fraction that you may be associated with, that brings a change.
Thank you very much, Maulana. Sheikh Ibrahim Agha.
Try to find the balance between wisdom and emotion. When you see a YouTube clip of an imam, a sheikh or Maulana, inciting hatred, don't give him any more hits. Don't forward it. Use your judgment. Use your wisdom. Because by forwarding it to another person, you're going to hurt their feelings, because they have to sit through that. Somebody offered me to show me a YouTube clip about someone who said some horrible things. I said, no, thank you. I don't want to experience that pain and hurt of seeing some very beloved historic figures to me being talked about in this way. So let's use our wisdom, balance our emotion, don't give it any more publicity, because it just creates more hatred. And I, alhamdulillah, if I express this as a gratitude to Allah, I will never, inshallah, God help me, I will never promote anything that is insightful towards others. If I share any information, it will be based on an academic and educational perspective. That way, inshallah, we can do justice to all this, and those lone voices will soon die out. On the other hand, the voices of respect, the voices of acceptance, the voices of celebration, those are the ones that we must promote. You flood social media with the positive messages of kindness, of respect, so that those hate-filled messages, inshallah, will be drowned out.
I think that Islam came to open our mind, and we should think intellectually, not emotionally. For example, if we take or read any messages on Facebook or WhatsApp, we have to think what is the actual message, and not to forward more important other things. For example, we are thinker, and Islam came to open the mind and to open all the door of how to think. So it's more important to think before talk, before any action or before any deed. We have to think, then we can do anything. And more important, that Prophet of Allah, in the abbreviation of his life, if you see, that more important is moral. In all the way is moral. So we have to practice the moral in our life, inshallah. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Beautifully understood, emphasizing the beautiful qualities and universal values and qualities of our Prophet, peace be upon him. And inshallah, I hope we have all benefited, and I hope all the viewers have also benefited and taken all the messages that we've been privileged to have taken from all of you. And thank you so much. Thank you once again. Inshallah, we'll have a lot more programs, Islam and economy, Islam and politics, a lot of important aspects and discussions that to be had, inshallah, in future. And once again, thank you very much for all your continuous support and your input in this program. Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum.